Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's public meetings. We have two public meetings tonight. This is a council meeting to host public meetings on matter requiring approvals under the Planning Act. Before we begin, members of the public are advised that a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the corporation of the city of St. Thomas before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the council of the corporation of the city of St. Thomas to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Further, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the corporation of the city of St. Thomas before the bylaw is passed, a person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Those wanting to be notified of council's decision, council will not make a decision tonight, but those wanting to be notified of council's decision on any application should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca. Indicate which public meeting they wish to be notified on and provide their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call customer service at 519-631-1680, extension 0, and provide the same information. Do any members of council have a disclosure of interest concerning the matters on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, what method of notice and when was notice given to the public for this meeting?
Your worship, notice was provided in the St. Thomas Times Journal on Friday, April 22nd, 2022. And in accordance with council policies, notice was also mailed to property owners within 120 meters of each of the properties that are subject to tonight's public meetings.
Okay, and tonight's first public meeting is 1025 Talbot Street. It's a zoning bylaw amendment. I'll call the first meeting to order and advise that this is a public meeting. The first public meeting is required by the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for lands known as 1025 Talbot Street, which will amend the bylaw to permit an electronic billboard on the subject lands. I think I'm going to introduce our Manager of Planning Services, Jim McComb, who will give us some background information on the draft bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to share my screen now for this particular application. Okay, the first slide before you shows the subject lands located at the south side, or sorry, the north side of Talbot Street at the intersection with First Avenue. Drafted an amendment to the bylaw.
Mr. McComb, if you're speaking, we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now, Your Worship?
Mr. McComb, are you trying now?
Your Worship, yes, I am trying. Can you hear me now?
I see you and I see your lips moving. And I know really important stuff is being said, but I'm just not hearing it.
Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you, Dan.
I can hear you, Jim.
Can the other participants also hear me? Maybe the problem is in the council chamber.
Yeah, we can hear you on Zoom, but for some reason not in the council chambers.
Give it a try, Mr. McComb.
Your Worship, can you hear me now?
Yeah, Jim, I can hear you here. I'm on Zoom, but it must be a council room thing. I will try to let them know, or the host know. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Dan can hear me. You can hear me.
Got you now. Go ahead.
You can hear me now, Your Worship?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so starting again, the first slide you see before you shows the subject lands located on the north side of Talbot Street at the intersection with First Avenue. And this next slide is just a graphical depiction of what the billboard sign will look like once it's complete, electronic style sign. And we drafted an amendment to the bylaw in support of this proposal. So the first part of the amendment states that zoning map 11 to bylaw 50-88 as amended is further amended by zoning land shown outlined in heavy solid lines on Schedule A hereto as MU-1. This schedule shall be added to and form part of the bylaw and should be known as special zoning map 11-24 to bylaw 50-88 as amended. Here's a copy of that special zoning map 11-24 showing the subject lands and heavy solid lines going into this MU-1. Part 2 states that bylaw 50-88 is amended is further amended by adding to subsection 20 the following paragraphs. Special provisions 20.9 states that the provisions of subsection 20.1 to 20.8 inclusive and all other applicable provisions of the bylaw shall apply to the use of land and to the erection use of buildings and structures in each special zone in this subsection, except where there is a conflict between the provisions of the special zone and the provisions of subsections 21 to 20.8 inclusive. For any other applicable provision in this bylaw, provisions of the special zone shall prevail. So that is a preamble that is not in our bylaw yet, had to be added for the special provision or special zone. In addition, the provision of each special zone shall, unless otherwise provided in such special zone, apply only to the use of land permitted in the special zone, with the erection and use of buildings and structures permitted in the special zone. So the first special zone, 20.9.1, Part A states that the area affected is the MU-1, as was shown on the special zoning map 11-24. Additional permitted use states that notwithstanding the provision of subsection 4.1.14, one electronic billboard shall be permitted. Part C says that it shall have a maximum surface area of 20 square meters per side. And Part D states a maximum height of 9 meters. Part 3 of the amendment states that in anticipation of the eventual consolidation of the bylaw, and all amendments to such bylaw, including this amendment, Schedule B to this amendment is adopted, being zoning map 11 to bylaw 50-88 to include changes made in such zoning map by all amendments to bylaw 50-88 to date, including this amendment. So here is the consolidated zoning bylaw, and the subject lands are located in the bottom right corner of the map part. That is a draft, Your Worship, if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCoom. I'll ask first to the clerk. Do you have any written submissions on the proposed changes?
Your worship, we have not received any submissions for these proposed changes.
Okay, then the next step is for me to ask council if you have any questions, and if so, please raise your hands. Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Your Worship. How are we as a city going to deal with either any sort of complaint that may be the appropriateness or inappropriateness of anything that's advertised on this? And B, we've recently approved a new apartment building on the site. I can say that I can stand on my back deck in downtown St. Thomas and I can see the colors change on Talbot Street from a couple signs, reflection. So any sort of noise or light concerns, particularly that might be raised by tenants in that new apartment building, or so policing and light issues. Thank you.
Mr. McComb?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Peters. Councillor Peters did raise this at the time of the report as far as the messaging on the sign is concerned. And I have had some discussion with the Director of Environmental Services relative to, as staff had indicated, having control for billboard signs put under the sign bylaw. And one of the things that we are talking about as staff, there's currently not very much in the sign bylaw in terms of enforcement, and in particular when it comes to the messaging and that sort of thing. So we are going to give some consideration to that. And at the time that we bring back amendments to the zoning bylaw to remove the billboard restrictions and place those into the sign bylaw, at the time we report on that, we will likely have some recommendations for council's consideration with respect to the messaging. With regards to the lighting, this particular sign is going to be oriented so that the two faces are facing east and west. The apartment building is going to be up to the north. We can talk to the applicants with respect to seeing if at nighttime there can be like a dimming of the sign so that it's not as bright. And we can approach them about that and see if that's a possibility for this particular sign.
Further questions from council? Seeing none, we'll now open the meeting to questions from the public for those attending who have not already submitted their concerns or comments to the city. If you're listening on your computer or tablet or smartphone, please click the raised hand icon. And if you called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be taken in that sequential order. And when given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the clerk's record. Remembering this is a meeting for 1025 Talbot Street. So I see that I have a Matt Campbell with his hand up. We'll try and get you off mute. Go ahead, Matt. If you can speak, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Preston. Can I just confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So my name is Matt Campbell. I'm a senior planner with Zelenka Priamo. I'm the agent on behalf of the applicant with regards to this application. And there was a staff report that was brought forward to council earlier this year that was informing council of the specific request. And I just want to acknowledge that this is a bit of an unusual request simply because laws around signage, and in particular a billboard as it's defined in the City of St. Thomas zoning bylaw, that typically doesn't happen. As Mr. McComb alluded to, that's typically regulated under the sign bylaw, as well as Mr. McComb mentioned that the sign in question here has already been approved as part of the site plan application for the commercial development that I think everyone is quite excited about. I know I certainly am. The issue before council this evening is really related to the copy that is going on that particular sign. And we're certainly cognizant of the fact that perhaps some updates to the sign bylaw may be in order, as this is an issue that it seems to be somewhat of its first of its kind in recent memory in St. Thomas. And it's likely that this is an issue that may come up in the future as well. So, we're certainly agreeable to looking at any sort of future changes in the bylaw, the sign bylaw rather, and certainly looking forward to any comments that council or the public may have in here. Again, we're excited for this development to happen. We're here to answer any questions that the council or the public may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if we have more, we may call on you. Sandra and Lance McAdams is the next hand we have up. And as we take you off mute, please let us know who you are and address, and then your question, please. I still see that you're muted. Can you take yourself off mute? Yes, there we go. Please introduce yourself and let us know name and address, please.
Oh, we're Sandra and Lance McAdams, and we live at 182 Woodworth Ave. We're sorry, we just came into the meeting late and accidentally clicked on the hand. So we're just going to listen. Thank you.
Okay, well, please
Sorry.
put your hand down so we don't call on you again until that one. Please and thank you. All right. Any other questions from the public? I see a Brian Bosch. Brian Bosch, if your comment is on 1025 Talbot Street, please go ahead.
Hi, I didn't actually call in for this. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes?
Hi, I'm Brian Bosch. I live at 225 Woodworth, and I am calling for the later meeting, but I also, this actually piqued my interest because I want to know if, I'm not really a big fan, to be honest, of LED billboards, mostly because of how distracting they can be for drivers. And there are a lot of recent studies that do show that there's a significant increase of distraction to drivers from lit billboards versus traditional style billboards. Has City Council considered that, or has that been part of this proposal? Something looking into those types of studies? I'll leave that for discussion. That was all I really wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment from the public? Anyone else with discussion? Any other members of council with discussion? Then I will suggest that we've been, in the opinion of the mayor, the public's been given a fair opportunity to express their views regarding the proposal. Everyone who's been given a fair opportunity to express their views, and if there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of this bylaw for a proposed amendment should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca and indicate the public meeting you wish to be notified on. This is the public meeting number 1 for 1025 Talbot Street. And those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call customer service at 519-631-1680, extension 0, and provide, again, your name, address, and what public meeting you're providing comment for or would like to be notified on. And this public meeting is now concluded. We will now move into public meeting number 2, which is 30 South Edgeware Road. And I will say that, again, this second public meeting is required by the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for lands known as 30 South Edgeware Road, which will permit 3 3-unit townhouse developments on the subject land. I will introduce Mr. McComb again to share with us the background information on the proposal and present the draft bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. I assume everybody can still hear me.
Yes, we can, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Oh, this first screen is a location plan showing the location of the subject lands to this proposal, being located on the northwest corner of the intersection of South Edgeware Road and Woodworth Crescent. The hatched area on the location plan shows the area that is subject to the zoning amendment and basically covers the area of 2 lots that were received tentative approval for consent from the Committee of Adjustment. On the screen right now is a conceptual site plan that was provided by the applicants that shows, again, for each one of these lots, street townhomes with 3 units on each block. And so we've prepared an amendment to the zoning bylaw with respect to this proposal. First part of the amendment states that zoning map 2 to bylaw 50-88 is amended. Is further amended by zoning the lands that are outlined in heavy solid lines on Schedule A as R3-117, and such schedule shall be added to and form part of bylaw 50-88, to be known as special zoning map 2-1. But here is a copy of that special zoning map 2-1, and again showing the area, specific area to be rezoned, going into the R3-117 zoning designation. Part 2 of the amendment further amends the bylaw by adding to subsection 7.5 a new paragraph, 75117. The area affected is the R3-117 as is shown in the special zoning map 2-1. A maximum lot coverage of 43% is requested, as well as a minimum rear yard depth of 7 meters. In part D of the special paragraph, noting that the front lot line states that notwithstanding the provisions of subsection 146.2, the front lot line for a corner lot within this zone shall be considered the lot line along Woodworth Crescent. There's an exception to the general provisions of the R3 zone are otherwise covered off by the special provisions of this particular special zone. Part 3 states, in anticipation of the eventual consolidation of bylaw 50-88 and all amendments to such bylaw, including this amendment, Schedule B to the amending bylaw is hereby adopted, being zoning map 2, showing all changes made to such zoning map by all amendments, including this amendment. So here is the consolidated zoning map 2, and the subject land shown in heavy solid line being placed into this R3-117 zoning designation. And that is a draft amendment, Your Worship, if there are any questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. McComb. We'll move now to introduce Darren Lyle, a representative of the owner, JEG Home Solutions, and he will make a presentation.
Your worship, I believe that Mr. McComb will be sharing the screen for this and the following presentation as well.
Okay, I see Mr. Lyle, you're up and you should now be unmuted, so please.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship, members of council. I did share a couple slides with Jim, and I believe he was going to pull those up on his screen so we could follow along. So Jim, Mr. McComb, thank you for your introductory presentation on this project. So as Mr. McComb stated, myself of Cyril J. Meyer Limited is the applicant for Alan Patton of JEG Home Solutions for this rezoning application. Concurrent with the submission of the zoning application was a consent to sever application of the two townhouse lots along Woodworth Crescent. Those lots were conditionally approved by the Committee of Adjustment 6 weeks ago or so, but require the zoning to be followed through with as well. So the applicant submitted a fairly comprehensive package with the zoning bylaw amendment request, which included the typical supporting studies, a traffic study confirming no adverse effects on Woodworth Avenue or the intersection of South Edgeware Road, tree protection plan, just reviewing the existing vegetation on site, servicing report confirming adequacy of stormwater management, sanitary sewer and water servicing facilities, and then a planning justification report prepared by Zelenka Priamo, confirming general conformance with the city's zoning bylaw, official plan policies, and general support of the development, similar to the conclusions that the city had. The city planning staff had reached as well. On the screen in front of us now is an updated rendering or colored line drawing that has been prepared by the applicant. So that is that's the building designer's rendition of what each townhouse unit would look like. So that's one three unit building. So since time of application, the owner has considered some building materials, color schemes and everything. So we thought that we would, since that has been advanced, we thought we would take the opportunity to share that. We are certainly conscious that this is an infill development within an established community within the city of St. Thomas. So the builder JEG Home Solutions is committed to ensuring the built form here is compatible with the existing neighborhood. With the use of high quality building materials, for example, but while still trying to make efficient use of the land and provide increased housing within the city, which we all know that we need. The owner has been active in the community with speaking to a number of the neighboring residents, kind of to hear out their concerns. We are certainly, this part of the public process, we are here to to listen to the feedback that we're about to receive. And by the sounds of it, there's going to be a fair bit. And so we would like to hear everybody's comments, and we want to do what we can to have this be a successful development and fit within the community. So I think I'll sign off there, but myself, the planner, Matt Campbell, solicitor Amy Dale, and then the developer Alan Patton of JEG, we're all on the line today, and we're available to answer questions as needed. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, have you received any written submissions on the proposed changes?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have received approximately 20, and they are concerning vehicle and pedestrian traffic and safety, loss of green space and trees, disruption of neighborhood and natural environment, noise, drainage, parking, building lot coverage and lot size, density, potential devaluation of property values of existing properties, water and sewer issues, snow removal, and garbage. Your Worship, at this time, if council will allow, Mr. Will Pohl has a brief overview to provide to council regarding his PowerPoint presentation. And then if Mr. McComb could get those slides ready for Mr. Pohl.
That's great. Mr. Pohl, let us know when you are ready. I can't see the list that has Mr. Pohl in it. So I'm waiting for him to come off mute. And I now see your name, Mr. Pohl. So if you can take yourself off mute, please do so. If not, there you go. You're off now.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, members of council, for an opportunity to speak. This is a presentation on behalf of the Lock community prepared by myself, and I've been retained by the community to assist in the planning review of the site. Next, please. The request this evening is we're asking that the application be refused. It does not maintain the quality of the existing Lock community. There is infill and residential development potential for 3 single detached lots. They haven't considered, I think, an important part of the site, the heritage value of the Lock site. And in my opinion, the increased lot coverage to 43% and the reduced rear yard setback is not appropriate for the development of the site. Next, please. This is my outline of what I'll be speaking to. Next. So this is through discussion with the community. This is the Lock community, backs on to Dalewood Conservation Area. It's close to Lock Public School, Monsignor Morrissey Catholic School. And what we have are large, well developed residential single detached dwellings. A very livable community. Next, please. This is a zoom in, an air photo from the City of St. Thomas website, showing the area in solid white being rezoned, as well as the single detached lots surrounding it. And I think it's important to note that the existing lot fabric is large, about 15,000 square feet, compared to the proposed lot area for individual townhouses and frontage, which is probably in the order of 40 feet and 3,500 square feet. Next, please. These are existing site photos. So this is the Heritage Lock property. Top right is the area that's being rezoned for 6 townhouse projects. You can see in the background and off to the left, mature landscaping, a very estate-like property. And we have on the bottom the split rail fence showing where the townhouses are proposed. Next, please. This is a plan view showing the relationship between the 3 townhouse units in red, the retained single detached dwelling, and really that important relationship between the townhouse units and the single detached dwellings on the opposite side of Woodworth Crescent. That's really what I want to emphasize with council. Next, please. So this is these are images from the planning justification report submitted by the applicant. And what I've tried to do is compare the two townhouse units of 3 units each with what they'll be facing on the other side of Woodworth. And in fact, they'll be facing one single detached dwelling at 219, the detached garage at 34 South Edgeware Road, and the dwelling at Edgeware Road. So what we have is 6 dwellings facing 2 dwellings, 6 entrances facing 2 entrances, a significantly different character of the area. Next, please. City of St. Thomas has very good official plan policies, in my opinion. You thoughtfully have decided where development should go. And the main goal is to maintain or improve the quality of residential areas. This application, in my opinion, doesn't. Secondly, you have locational criteria for this kind of townhouse project within walking distance of parks, proximity to school. You've identified certain sites along Talbot that are intended for medium density. It's not close to Talbot Street. The proposal for 1-bedroom, single floor townhouses does not encourage families, so schools are not important. And in fact, walking to the Dalewood Conservation Authority, which is a beautiful site, is more than 5 minutes, more than 400 meters. It's probably around 700 meters. The intent of the plan is that there be sufficient rear yard and sufficient lot coverage to allow for landscaped open space, good access. By the nature of the applications, to reduce that rear yard, increase the lot coverage, that's not being achieved. And the infill policies, again, very good policies by the City of St. Thomas to recognize the scale of adjacent land uses and enhance the character of the area. This site is where they're squeezing in 6 townhouses because they feel that they can work. It's not enhancing the character of the area. Next, please. This is the proposed R3A zone. And in all 4 directions opposite the site, we have R1 zoning. Next, please. And this is the comparison, the zoning amendment analysis between the existing R1 zone and the proposed modified R3A. Townhouses, 4 units per lot, increase of 300%. Minimum lot area reduced by 60%. Lot frontage at 5.25 per unit is a 65% reduction. Rear yard, 33. Units per hectare are increasing based on the minimum lot sizes. All of these characteristics of the zoning do not suggest it's improving the quality of this neighborhood, or is it considering the height, scale, and architectural design of that surrounding neighborhood. Next, please. I have considered the provincial policy statement, and yes, it encourages intensification with appropriate development standards, and that's what the City of St. Thomas has done. It encourages a sense of place, promoting well-designed built form, cultural planning to conserve features that define character. And I should note again, no consideration has been given to the significant heritage resource of the existing loch property. In conclusion, it's not consistent, in my opinion, with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020. Next, please. So what's permitted in the R1 zone? What could they do? They could have 3 single detached dwellings opposite the 2 single detached dwellings on Woodworth Crescent and retain the single detached dwelling. In my opinion, this is the kind of infilling that the City of St. Thomas policies, the Provincial Policy Statement, and the zoning bylaw are actually expecting. This is a large lot. There's lots of opportunity for redevelopment of the site. Secondly, we have the retained single detached dwelling. And that's sort of an omission in my opinion. What are we going to do with that retained single detached dwelling? The applicant has already indicated intensification, but let's have this entire package come forward to council, to the community, so that we can consider all of the aspects of the site. Next, please. So based on that review, the discussions I've had with the community in terms of the character of the area, in my opinion, the zone which permits 3 single detached dwellings is appropriate. This application does not meet that overall goal to improve the character of the neighborhood. With respect to the zoning modifications to reduce the rear yard, increase the lot coverage, this is not in keeping with the character of the area. And finally, that consideration of the heritage property and the future use of the existing building is at question. Thank you very much for your time, Mayor Preston and members of council. I'm available for questions, and I have requested to be notified of the decision. And in passing, the community has appealed the consent application to create the 2 lots to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Thank you.
Okay, our next step tonight is I'll ask council if you have any questions, and if you do, raise your hands and let us know who you're directing your questions to. Councilor Peters.
Thanks, Your Worship. Mainly comments. I think first and foremost, I just want to lament the fact of the significant cultural loss we're going to have with this, but what's been happening all across of our city. We have lost this culturally significant property that will likely be approved for development at 59 Walnut Street. We have lost a significant cultural property at the southeast corner of Wellington and Park Ave. That was a large estate lot that is now being subdivided into houses. We're probably going to lose another culturally significant property at 57 Walnut Street because I've noted that a demolition permit has been approved for the site. We've yet to see anything from redevelopment. And these large estate-like lots are gradually disappearing. And there is a challenge that we would have as a council of taking control of that. But I think we do have the ability to control if those estate lots are going to be redeveloped, we have the ability to control how they are going to be redeveloped. We may not like it, but we have that ability. I just want to would go on the record as saying that significant concerns about the loss of the sight lines along Woodworth Crescent, that all of these houses on Woodworth Crescent have been noted have large, deep setbacks from the roadway, and that's going to be lost with this development here. I would say as well that because of we do not have in place design features, design plans for the city. I know staff is working on that we end up with designs that aren't necessarily compatible with neighborhoods. And finally, I would hope, because my concern is I would, as much as I don't like the 3 lots that are approved under the R1 zoning, that may have to be the fallback. But I'm also concerned about the actual house at 30 South Edgeware and what potentially could happen to it, that if perhaps the developer may change their mind down the road and we start to see some sort of a significant infill development on that property that is not appropriate for that site. And I would hope, I recognize there was a report from Municipal Heritage Committee. The house is not designated. That the developer would give consideration to designation of that house to ensure that the architectural features are preserved for future generations, and that we prevent any additional redevelopment of the existing 30 South Edgeware lot. Those are my comments, Your Worship. I do not support what is in front of us tonight, and I will not support it when it comes back to council. I would support what is allowed under the R1 zoning. And I just say this to the neighbors that I have a family member that's leaving for Thailand this evening, and I will not be here for the whole of the meeting. I will commit to watching it online when it is posted, but I will be staying for a little while, but I will have to leave, and I just extend my apologies. Thanks, Your Worship.
Further questions from council? Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Mine too is a series of comments and then a question. This is also my neighborhood. There is a flashing light on South Edgeware Road because it's a main arterial road. And it took me through the Safe Schools initiatives, many, many months of council work in order to get that flashing light installed a number of years ago, reminding people to slow down, that it was a community safety zone. There is increased traffic and it's to decrease your speed. Every time that I canvass prior to an election, going back to my first term of council, the neighborhood has always expressed this street walk as an area of high concern due to the area of high traffic. I agree with Councillor Peters in regards to the sight lines, because the buses, instead of turning down Dalewood Drive, they turn down Woodworth Crescent for Locke School in order to come around. So the doors for the for students to remove themselves from the bus when they are departing the bus is on the right-hand side. So they have direct access to the play yard at Locke's. So I am extremely concerned about the pedestrian traffic at that intersection, not just for those crossing Woodworth Crescent at South Edgeware for Locke School, but also for Morrison. And I will note that since this was done, since that flashing light was installed, student population has increased at both schools. And there has been, to my understanding, a family center that has now at Locke's. So not just the sightlines themselves, as Councillor Peters has brought up, but I'm quite concerned about how this is going to reflect in a traffic study. It's already a very high traffic area, high traffic use during school hours. In addition to the buses, there's also parents that are driving children to school. And it takes great concern for those that are walking. So I will not be supporting this based upon all of those reasons. Thank you.
Did you suggest you may have a question?
The question was the traffic study.
Okay, thank you. Further questions from council? Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't have a question. I guess I'll just state my comments right now too. I won't go into the same detail that Councillor Peters and Baldwin Sands, but I do agree with everything that they said. And I certainly won't be supporting this development as is. If we were looking, I don't believe it fits the neighborhood as the consultant hired by the group has said. And if it was a development that fit the R1 zoning, maybe with some single family units, I'd maybe consider it, but as is, certainly won't be supporting it going forward.
Thank you. Further questions from council? Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm all in favor of infill, but I think the projects need to properly fit the lot, and this one doesn't. I think the 7 meters is too short. The lot coverage is too much, and the overall project doesn't recognize the scale of the adjacent lands. So I will not be in favor of this project.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from council? We'll now open the meeting to members of the public. And for those attending who have not already submitted their support, their concerns or comments to the city, if you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you have called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. And the questions will be taken in sequential order. And given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the clerk's records. And I will recognize members of council as we go also. So the first hand is Brian Boss. And Brian, you're on, and it does not look like you're muted. Please go ahead.
Hi, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Brian Bosch. I live at 225 Woodworth Crescent, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my wife, Katrina Bosch. We would like to be kept informed of the decision of this matter. I just wanted to speak. I have a bunch of things that I wanted to say, and I'm kind of at a loss for words now because it seems like the members of council have almost covered a lot of my concerns for me, and it's really good to see that we have some support in this issue. Mainly, my concerns are that we've got a severance on this lot. We now have a potential rezoning. And not only do we have those two steps, but now we're asking to exceed the existing bylaws of that new rezoning in order to allow this project. And it doesn't seem like this is something that is required. It doesn't seem like something that the neighborhood needs. It seems like this is something that the builder wants. And I don't think we need to be changing or allowing acceptances, which is multiples on this project, to zoning bylaws in order for something that is strictly a want and not a need. There's no need for a building this big. There's no need for this type of building necessarily, and it doesn't really fit the site. I'd just like to say as well that it would be different if there was an existing building there and we're looking to rezone to allow something to be added because of a requirement, but this seems strictly for profit and to maximize the amount of land usage, and it doesn't seem right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next on my list with hands up is Rob and Wendy. So as you come up, unmute yourself and we'll unmute you from our end, and please give us names and address, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship, and councillors. Rob and Wendy Bedard, we're at 38 South Edgeware Road. We have a concern with the existing water table in this community. Those of us who have been here for many decades can attest to the fact that there's a very high water level for majority of the year. The plan suggests that the drainage has been considered and that there'd be no impact. Interestingly enough, though, there's 2 storm sewers planned to be on the private properties. And so, with taking away all the existing green space and that naturally absorbs the water into the grasses and gardens that are there now, replacing it with asphalt and concrete. Essentially, we're doing permanent changes to the existing aquifer. So 2 parts is how can such a change, as already mentioned a few times this evening, a change that is quite significant for the size of the property, not have an effect. And 2, with these storm sewers on private property, a homeowner that lives in another city we can't expect a tenant to be taking care of these. How can the community be assured, not just months ahead, but years ahead, decades ahead, that these are properly maintained and houses that currently do not have flooded basements stay that way? We appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very, very much. The next name I have is Russell Snur. Russell, good to see you here tonight. Please unmute and go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. So I'm just sharing some of the comments, information that was reviewed by the Municipal Heritage Committee. So the committee was contacted by Sandra Andrews on behalf of numerous residents within the neighborhood surrounding the subject site. They provided some interesting historical information on the subject property, as well as the former Locke Farm that once existed, where many of the homes in Locke's public school stands today. The committee reviewed the documents and discussed whether the property and the building warranted designation and if the proposed development application would negatively impact these heritage assets. The Locke House, which was built in the early 1870s, certainly has significant and original architectural features that should be protected. These were outlined in detail in the submitted comments we provided to the clerk's office late last week. The subject site has a direct connection to an important public figure with strong ties to our community's rural roots, that being Charles E. Locke, who was a member of an original pioneer family to the area. He was a strong advocate for his community through his roles as township councillor, reeve, and municipal tax collector for over 30 years. He was also well-respected, prominent cattle farmer within the area. He was progressive in his approach to farming, focusing on purebred dairy cattle and ensuring his farm and farmhouse were one of the first rural properties in the area to use electricity in 1912. As development pressures build within the growing city, urban or rural properties are often consumed and subdivided for other uses. Many original farmhouses are removed and lost to new development, resulting in the loss of our built rural heritage. It is rare to find such a great example of a historical significant property within the built-up urban area. A former Locke home and surrounding property provide an important connection to our rural history that help contribute to an understanding of our community and culture, and therefore should be protected. The Locke house and property have contextual heritage value. They help define the character of the neighborhood, and they provide a historical link to the rural history of the area. Fortunately, the large estate lot has survived and has been a defining landmark within the neighborhood for decades. Rural heritage properties like this one are unique, important, and contribute to our community's sense of place. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment and consent applications would negatively impact this heritage asset by allowing new residential units to completely block views from the east. The proposed lots and buildings, which are very close to the easterly wall of the former Locke farmhouse, would also remove the large open space surrounding the home to the east and negatively impact the more rural character of the property. Lastly, the committee does understand that new housing is needed within our community. However, it is also important to protect our built heritage, so we must work with applicants to allow for development potential to be realized while also protecting our cultural heritage resources. If possible, the committee recommends limiting development on the property to only additional units within the existing building. This would protect the former farmhouse and the majority of the property from further development. If the rezoning is approved or a variation is approved, the Municipal Heritage Committee recommends a holding provision be placed on the property until the building and remaining property is designated. This will ensure the protection of this significant heritage asset and important connection to our rural history. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Next on my list is Mila and Aaron Powers. You're
Thank
ready.
you. Yes, thank you, Your Worship and Council, for hearing us tonight. I'm a member of the Locke's Parent Council. I've been a volunteer there for about 9 years. Over the years, we've had a lot of parking issues surrounding Locke's. We've dealt with Inkerman being bogged down with cars. The city has responded by making the parking only on one side there. Thank you. We've done work on Dalewood Drive, which was also dangerous for our students. So right now in our community, the parents that are picking up their students are using that frontage on Woodworth Crescent for a staging area to pick up their students. That is the only side street in our area that has sidewalks. So if this land use goes forward, we are going to be pushing those extra cars back further into our neighborhoods north on Woodworth, where there are no longer sidewalks. So by approving this, we're actually putting our students in risk, in my opinion. It's a very stressed area during school pickup times. The school has done what they can do. They've also made a walking school bus trying to alleviate some of these stresses, but the school is aware. They're also very concerned, and it just, thank you for hearing us tonight, and please notify us of your decision.
Thank you, and we will. Thank you for calling and letting us do that. I have no one else on my hands up list. Anything from council?
Your Worship, it's Maria. Just need to interrupt for a moment. I did not catch an address for Mr. and Mrs. Powers.
If you're still on there, and I think you are, yes, please come back on and we'll put you so that you can give us your address. You're on.
Sorry
Go.
about that. Sorry. Mila and Aaron Powers were 37 South Edgeware Road.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for hearing us tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Wookie, you have a question or comment?
Just my comment is that when you look at, I mean, we've got a long road to go down here to see what will eventually show up on the property. But when I say, take a look at the Heritage House, and now it's stuck at the back of a very narrow lot. And I don't want to sound like a jaded politician, but that kind of stuff makes me a little bit edgy about what the long-term plan is for that home. It seems to me that if you wanted to preserve that home, you might have split the lot differently. But as we move down this journey of what's going to show up here, I'd be very interested in getting a far better idea from the developer of what their plan is for the existing lock property. And I think that will be very important to me in terms of what I think is acceptable and the rest of it. So this is more of a comment to the developer of like, I'd like to know, because right now it looks an odd looking lot and that makes me a little bit nervous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wookie. Further questions from other councillors or anyone else wanting to raise your hand and comment on tonight's discussion? Seeing nothing else from councillor. I have a hand up. Ellen Patton. Please go ahead.
Good evening. This is Alan Patton. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. So I am the developer, and to the question about what our plan is for the house that is there at 30 South Edgeware. My wife and I and my family are in the process of renovating the house, and we have applied for a building permit to build a garage attached to the house on the property. And our plan is to move to that property in the fall once the garage is built. We're quite excited to have obtained this property and this house. And so our plan is, it is staying a single family dwelling. We're very happy with the lot size of 100 by 200. It's a very, very large lot if in fact anything goes through for changing the zoning or changing the number of lots that are allowed on the property. So our plan is to move into the home once we're finished renovating and building a garage there. Thank you.
Further questions from the panel, from the council, from anyone else online tonight? Anything else? All right, then I will I will say that in the mayor's opinion, everyone's been given a fair opportunity to express their views. And if there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of the bylaw for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca and indicate which public meeting you wish to be notified on. And this public meeting is on 30 South Edgeware. So that is what you would indicate. And you provide your name and address, please, and then we will have that also on file. For those that don't have access to a computer and wish to be notified, please call customer service at 519-631-1680, extension 0, and provide your name and address and what planning meeting you were attending. This public meeting is now concluded. Thank you all for attending tonight.